Today on Villain Obscura, we'll be exploring the mini-minions of Catra, the Jealous Beauty. In 1985, Catra was the sole villain for the Princess of Power toyline. However, for the various stories building this early part of She-Ra lore, she needed cohorts and underlings to help her in her nefarious plans and dark deeds. Welcome to Villain Obscura, the Mini-Minions of Catra, Part 1. The Princess of Power toyline came about because Mattel noticed how many girls were going to the action figure aisle to buy Teela, the warrior goddess from the Masters of the Universe toyline. While originally devised within the boys' toy department, through inter-office intrigue, the Princess of Power toyline would eventually land in the girls' department. Filmation would come aboard during the development of the Princess of Power toyline. They would craft the story Bible and use the Evil Horde, a new faction being introduced in the Masters of the Universe toyline, to serve as the main antagonist of the Princess of Power cartoon. This left the Princess of Power toyline with a bit of a quandary: who would She-Ra and her friends face? While eventually Mattel's Monster High doll line would change some of the rules of what made it to the shelves of the pink aisle, in 1985 the monster designs of the Evil Horde just wouldn't do. Mattel would solve this in several creative ways through the various non-filmation media that left us with a plethora of obscure and mostly forgotten villains from the early days of the Princess of Power franchise. The original Princess of Power toyline arrived on store shelves with just the one villain, Catra, a character who originated in Justine Danzer's original designs for the line. Danzer had worked at Kenner on both Strawberry Shortcake and Glamour Gals, and was responsible for many of the early designs of Catra, as well as several Wave 1 Princess of Power characters. While Wave 1's Double Trouble was a glamorous double agent who worked with She-Ra to foil Catra's plots, she was still a heroic character on the side of good. There are a few indications that Cass Spellman may have originally been intended to be a villain, as several of the Lady Bird storybooks cast her in the role of a cohort of Catra. But as far as the Wave 1 toyline was concerned, Catra was the only villain for She-Ra and friends to face. And while there may have been some expectation that perhaps girls would go to the action figure aisle to get members of the Horde, early Princess of Power media rarely used Horde action figure characters, and generally presented Catra as ruling for the Horde from a cat-faced castle in the center of the Fright Zone. In the very first mini-comic, The Story of She-Ra, we open with Catra chasing Adora and Spirit from the dark forest of Etheria. They flee toward the Crystal Castle with Catra and her minions behind them. We are not shown much of these minions, and they're not given any real characterization. Initially, they're shown on horses behind Catra and her horse, Storm. They are cat-like creatures, shown mostly in shadow. Only in a few panels are they given any actual details. Here, they're given faces akin to werecats and are yellowish green in color. Whether this was an intentional or stylistic coloring choice is unknown. Using her magic, She-Ra frees these minions from Catra's dark magic, and it's revealed that they were the animals from the forest of Etheria. The animals flee, and Catra uses the dark magic inner shield to continue the fight with She-Ra. He-Man arrives, interrupts the fight, and is reunited with his long-lost sister. Catra flees alone. These minions converted by her dark magic never appear again, nor are they referenced in any other media. Next up is the second mini-comic that was a pack-in with Catra and Angela figures in Wave 1. The Journey to Mizar. Here the story opens with Angela. Here she's the Queen of Mizar, not Bright Moon, and she comes to She-Ra for assistance in defending her people against Catra's siege. On their way to Mizar, Catra sends her flying catbirds to stop She-Ra and Angela. The catbirds have some power that enables them to drain Swiftwind's power, which is already stressed by carrying 2 passengers rather than just 1. Other than being able to fly and being nuisances, this power-draining ability of the catbirds is their only defined power, and it's barely defined and not explained. She-Ra sends Swiftwind ahead to Mizar with Angela, and She-Ra stays behind to distract and face the catbirds alone. Without Angela to guide her, She-Ra goes on a side quest for a map that will lead her through the Dark Forest and eventually to Mizar. Once she's through the forest and in a magical water raft that will take her to Mizar, she again faces the catbirds. She manages to lose most of them on the crashing rocks off the rapids. With the catbirds thwarted, Catra next uses her dark magic to summon sea monsters. Using the magic of her sword, She-Ra easily escapes these beasts and continues her trip to Mizar. On the shore below Mizar, Catra steals the map of light that she should be able to use to gain access to Mizar, while She-Ra escapes with the help of Swiftwind. Catra's cat barbarians scale the cliffs that lead to Mizar, and they are different than the transformed animals from the previous mini-comic. With the help of a magical net given to her on her side quest, She-Ra stops the cat barbarians. She-Ra then uses the magic of her sword to transform them into stone statues that will protect Mizar from harm. In the third mini-comic, The Hidden Symbols Mystery, Catra plots to lure Bo away from Adora so he can join forces with her and rule Etheria and possess its wealth at her side. When Bo declines and attempts to fight back, Catra summons magical fiends. Bo defeats these fiends easily with one of his magic arrows. Whether these fiends are simply magical constructs or are actual creatures Catra has summoned is never adequately explained. It's at this point I pause and remind you it's important to remember these were mini-comics packed in with figures, designed to promote and sell toys to children in the 1980s. The plots didn't entirely line up or always make sense. They just needed to be fun and move quickly and spotlight the toys being sold. That covers the Wave 1 mini-comics. In the next mini-comic, that came packaged with Glimmer and Castaspella, Catra works alone. And in the final mini-comic of Wave 1, Double Trouble uses her position as a double agent to help She-Ra and friends rescue a captured Frosta and save the day. But we'll talk more about Double Trouble in a future video. Next, we'll look at the Golden Book storybooks released in the early Princess of Power line. These actually received a commercial with animation and were available in some markets before The Secret of the Sword had reached the nearest theater. The first book, The Story of She-Ra, would give an abbreviated and altered version of the story scene in the first mini-comic, as well as the Secret of Sword movie. At the end of the story, She-Ra gazes into a pool at Crystal Castle, and she's shown Catra. Catra is riding Magic Hat. Magic Hat isn't given any background or history here. He's not even named in this story. What is interesting is Magic Hat, as presented, looks very much like the cat mount seen in the early Princess of Power presentation at Toy Fair before the line was finalized, and Catra's cat mount was replaced by her horse Storm for Wave 1. She would receive a cat mount in Wave 2, but that would be a pink lion named Claudine. Magic Hat is a white cat, very much like Panther from Masters of the Universe, with a similar saddle in a dark maroon red with gems in it. The saddle is very close to the one that Battlecat and Panther had in the vintage Masters of the Universe toyline. Episode 62 of the first season of Princess of Power is titled Magic Cats, but this Filmation episode isn't about Catra's mount from these golden books. Within Filmation lore, Magic Cat wasn't a single character, but an entire race of cat beings. This episode explains the history of Catra's mask and its powers, allowing her to transform into a cat. The other books in the Golden Book series are not numbered, and there is no way of determining what order the other stories are supposed to be read in based on elements presented in the books themselves. You could read any of them in any order after the story of She-Ra. However, as far as Magic Cat and other minions of Catra are concerned, the only other story in this 4-book series that we need to concern ourselves with today is Queen of the Ball. After many years of Horde rule, Madame Razz is reminiscing about the balls that were once held on Etheria. Glimmer and Adora have the idea that maybe they could have a ball since Glimmer's mother, Angela, is the queen. When they propose the idea to Angela, she's not convinced it's a good idea. However, Prince Defiant from a neighboring kingdom is coming for a visit, and he's interested in joining the rebellion. Glimmer is convinced if they have the ball, it might help convince Prince Defiant to join the rebellion. Angela is swayed when she realizes that if she has the dance, Prince Defiant could crown the queen of the ball. It's not explicitly clear as to why this would convince Prince Defiant to join the rebellion specifically, but for a kid's book of the 1980s, it's a functioning motivation that furthers the plot. Angela then laments that she no longer has her magic crown because Catra has stolen it, so there's no way for her to wear it to the ball. And again, this detail doesn't quite make sense, but again, for a 1980s children's book, it works as intended. Sadly, we're never given the story of how Catra steals Angela's crown. Adora decides that she must get the crown back, as it has magical properties that could help the rebels, but also, if she gets it back, that would teach Catra a lesson. She-Ra enlists Double Trouble to help her lure Catra away from the Fright Zone into the ball so She-Ra can sneak into Catra's tower and get the crown back. As the kingdom prepares itself for the ball, She-Ra's plot works, sort of. Catra decides to crash the ball, but she's going to bring Angela's crown along with her and crown herself the Queen of Bright Moon and defeat Angela, She-Ra, and the rebellion once and for all. Again, most of this doesn't quite make sense when you try to look at it logically, but again, 1980s children's book story logic is in play. During the course of the evening, Prince Defiant is rude and oafish, neither looking nor acting anything like a prince. After Prince Defiant insults Adora's dancing, despite him being the actual bad dancer, Adora slips off and transforms into She-Ra. She heads to the Fright Zone, not realizing that Catra has Angela's crown with her. She heads to the Fright Zone to retrieve the crown, not realizing that Catra has Angela's crown with her. In Catra's tower in the Fright Zone, She-Ra discovers the real Prince Defiant held hostage. He reveals Catra captured him and sent one of her guards in his place. She-Ra and Swiftwind free him and rush the real Prince Defiant back to the ball to prevent the fake Prince Defiant from crowning Catra with Angela's magical crown. Prince Defiant takes the crown from Catra, crowns Angela Queen of the Ball, and decides he'll join the rebellion. Catra escapes into the night on Magic Cat with the imposter prince at her side. While Magic Cat returns in the story, he's not given much in the way of characterization or even dialogue. At one point, Catra uses her magic to make his tracks glow in the dark, so her ghoulish army, which is never seen, could follow her. But that seems to be a temporary spell, not an actual ability Magic Cat has or one he retains. Double Trouble also easily obscured the glow-in-the-dark paw prints, so that Catra's backup goons are unable to follow her. So even if it was a power of Magic Cat, it's not particularly effective or stable. And that's it for Magic Cat. It does seem likely, though, that through the development of the Princess of Power toy line, this character did evolve into the character of Claudine, who was released in Wave 2. The cat seen in the Toy Fair Wave 1 presentation looks to be a reuse of the Battle Cat and Panther mold, as well as the Saddle mold. It was around this time that Mattel had the line in test groups, and in these groups the girls overwhelmingly wanted softer colors, more pastels, more glittery elements, and more of a girlish vibe. It's worth noting that 1984, when this line was being developed, it was in the early years of the brighter and bolder colors of the 1980s. For instance, Lisa Frank stickers and other products were on the market at this point and were gaining popularity with girls. Over at Hasbro, My Little Pony had launched in 1982 and was selling well enough that at this point it was considered a success. So the pastels, as well as sparkly glitter things, were beginning to have a little bit more cultural relevance at this point with the key demographic Mattel would have been courting with this toy line. Meaning most of the darker and more subdued colors, as originally presented, would have been replaced with something more pastel, more bright, and more vibrant. The darker hued cat toy and more menacing white cats seen in these storybooks would not have been a good fit for the direction the toy line was evolving in. As for the guard pretending to be the prince, we never get his real name. He's only revealed as a guard of Catra. And while other Princess of Power media would present more minions of Catra, the fake Prince Defiant would not return in any of them. He was just a disposable minion created for the purposes of this story, rather than a character reflecting a planned figure or ongoing character on the Filmation cartoon. And it's here that we're going to end the first part of Villain Obscura, the mini minions of Catra. I'll touch upon more of them in a future episode. What do you think? Would you like to see Magic Cat or some of the ghoulish henchmen from the original minicomic in a modern She-Ra toy line? Or should these very minor minion characters be left obscure and forgotten? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like. And if you'd like to see more like this, you should subscribe. I'm going to be doing more episodes dedicated to the obscure and mostly forgotten villains, with several episodes dedicated to She-Ra villains in celebration of 40 years of She-Ra. In the meantime, thank you for watching. I'll see you again in the next one.